Well, I'm back. Well, I'm back. I'm here. I'm in the USA. Welcome. This is KnitCheek. I'm Natalie. I'm the cheek behind KnitCheek, and I'm coming to you from Southern California. I have been away for quite some time. I was in Italy for 2 months exploring, working on farms, having the time of my life, but now I'm back. I have been back for about a week and a couple of days, and I'm not jet lagged. Well, I'm no longer jet lagged. I've gotten through all that. But it did take me a minute to adjust. And I was secretly trying to finish some projects because I didn't finish one project in Italy. And I have a reason for that, which I can jump into. Where I brought 2 projects with me to Italy. One I didn't even start, but one of them I did work on. I did work on quite a bit, but I had to rip back a couple of times. So it just took a long time. But yeah, I have that one. And then the black scarf that I said I was going to finish before I left. Spoiler alert, I didn't finish it. So I'll talk about that a little bit too. And I could rattle on about my trip to Italy for probably, I don't know, a couple of hours. So I am not going to do that in this video. I will talk a little bit about it, but I'll do the knitting stuff first, and then if you want to stick around for that, you can. And then if you have any questions, if you're also going to Italy or have any questions about that, you can always DM me. I am KnitCheek on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. So I'm back. Okay, so the first project that I said I was going to work on in Italy was, well, the only one I did work on was the Vacation Vest. Let me double check that that's the right. I'm pretty sure it's Vacation Vest by Park William. Yeah, I was really excited. I brought everything I needed to finish this project, and I fully intended to finish it and wear it in Italy, but it didn't happen. So, and I'll explain why that didn't happen. But this is where I have what I have so far. So a good amount. Trying to show you. Here is the Vacation Vest. So why didn't I finish this? Well, I actually knit this. I ripped it out twice because I think, and the pattern did say this about row gauge, people having issues with row gauge, especially here on the front panels, because you're knitting such a small section that your row gauge can get kind of longer. But I don't know if it was just that or if just my row gauge in general. I think that the fabric that I ended up getting for this, I did get gauge, I think. Reading gauge is not easy for me, and I struggle with it. So in my eyes, I was like, yeah, I got gauge, but I think I definitely could have sized down on the needle because the fabric was pretty loose. But I like the fabric, and it for a summer top, I think it'd be really nice. So what happened? What happened was this hole here, this armhole was like, it was huge. I don't know how big it is now, but it was gigantic the first time. So I had done kind of the pattern's fairly easy. So what did I do? I figured out like how to start the shoulder and V-neck increases just for the front 2 panels higher. I actually never ripped out the back. I was able to keep the back the way it was. So I ripped out the shoulders almost all the way and then re-knit them at a different speed. And then I ended up doing that 2 at a time because I stuck them on the same needle. So this is before I split for sieves. Sieves. These, the 2 fronts I would knit 2 at a time. That didn't work. It still is too big. So I had to rip out and redo that again. And so that's kind of just why I didn't finish in the first place. And the first time I had knit it, I think it was a good like inch past joining for sleeves. Not joining for sleeves, but joining the body. And So it did take quite a bit of time to do that. I mostly did a lot of knitting on the plane, like, because I started this, I think, at the airport. I did a lot of knitting on the plane there, and then I did a lot of knitting on the first farm that I was at. If I didn't say, so I went to Italy. I was woofing, which is where you work on farms in exchange for room and board. So the first farm, I did a lot of knitting. The second farm, I got the stomach flu, so I didn't do a lot of anything. And then the rest of the time we were just moving around so much that I didn't really have a lot of time to knit because I was just so busy seeing everything and running around like a crazy person. So yeah, also this is knit in Baroku's Pima 100. Here's a little taggy. And I had crocheted a top with this, the Sea Breeze tank top, which I have in a ton of my Instagram and TikToks. Is that how you say that? Like a plural? But yeah, that was the same yarn, and I really liked the way that came out in a crochet pattern. I am not as thrilled about this yarn in knitting, and that's just because it's not very forgiving. It's a little, it's not hard to work with, but it's just, it shows every, and I think this is called rowing out, where you'll get like a horizontal line, and I definitely have that. And I've always heard about it, but I've never had that issue before until this project, and I think it's because it just shows so well on the cotton yarn. So yeah, I don't think I would ever rip this out to change that, because I did rip it out after becoming aware that I was doing that, and I still wasn't able to fix it. So I don't really know, unless maybe I went down a needle size. Sorry, I'm like right next to my front door, and I just thought somebody knocked on it. But yeah, you could definitely see it. I don't think a non-knitter would ever be able to see that. It just kind of looks like you can see these are kind of looser. You can kind of see this row right here. It looks like I'm rowing out. I'm really rowing out. Yeah. So definitely had some inconsistencies with this yarn. Not the yarn, but with my knitting of the yarn. So that is the vacation vest. I really have more to say about it. The gauge is looser. It's hard to tell, but when I look at the sample that Park is wearing in the pictures, it doesn't look like it's as loose. But like I said, I had knit a swatch, and I thought it would be really nice for summer. It's not like if you just hold it up like this, you can see like you could see through it or anything. I mean, obviously I'm gonna wear a bra, but it just feels like it would be really nice for summer. So that's the vacation vest, which I got home a week and 2 days ago, as I said already, and I told myself I'm going to secretly finish this so that I can show it on the podcast, and I didn't because I got home and I was like, oh, I also need to secretly finish the black scarf that I said I would finish the week before I left, and I did try. I did really try. I was knitting this like crazy. I was like, I'll finish that, and that way I'll have 2 finished projects to show. And now I don't have any finished project to show. And the reason I decided to go ahead and just, I mean, I am close to finishing this, but I have to rip it out. I'm close to finishing it. So I was in my head, I was like, I just need a couple more days, and then I can go on there and I'll be able to, to have 2 finished objects. And this one too, I was like, I've done all the hard parts. Now all I have to do is knit back and forth, knit, purl, back and forth, and I'm going to crop it so I don't have a lot of work left on this besides finishing work. So in my mind, I was like, next week this will be done and I can go through all that. So that's why I didn't finish it. Why did I decide to jump on here is because of the scarf number 4 by my favorite word, knitwear, right? It's been a while since I looked at the pattern name. I do this when I knit. I just like throw pages in bags, and I do want to get better at using an iPad, but I'm just not very good at taking an iPad with me. So I like to have a printed version that I stick into the bag. And yeah, scarf number 4 by, yeah, my favorite things. So what is happening with scarf number 4? Scarf number 4 is knit. You start at the tortilla chip, which is the beginning, and then you knit until, is this the right side? Yeah, until the middle, and then you decrease. So I weighed this and then stopped halfway. Well, so how do I explain that? I weighed the yarn and then I stopped when I had a good amount more than half of the yarn left when I weighed it. And I ran out of yarn. And that is not because I didn't calculate or weigh that correctly. That is because my gauge is significantly different from the first part of my batwing to the second part. And I don't know if it's black, so I don't know if you can tell, but I actually think that you can tell just by looking at it. Can you see how much holier, how much more light is showing through that than this? I didn't think you'd be able to tell, but you can. So if you look in the beginning here, I am using a technique where when you do your ribbing, and I like this technique because it gives really clean ribbing 1 by 1, and I struggle with 1 by 1. And that is because the yarn travels a longer distance when you go from a purl to a knit. And so you end up with extra yarn because of your needle, and it looks really sloppy. So I had been Googling, like, how do I fix that? Is it just me? Is it just my 1 by 1 that's really sloppy? It's not. I figured that's a problem that a lot of people have. And I found, I'm completely forgetting where. I'll have to see if I can find it so I could give that person credit. But somebody had posted about it, explaining it really well, way better than I'm doing right now, about why that issue occurs. Let me take a sip of this. It's lukewarm. Why does that issue occur, and how do we fix it? Because I had found other techniques, and they all involve twisting your stitches, which I just, originally I knitted, what beanie was that? I just knitted a beanie, the weekend hat, and you can't do that with that because it's in the round, and I think the technique, you have to like fix the twisted stitch in the, I don't know. I'm not a great technical knitter, so please don't. I just cut my hair if you're wondering why I keep playing with it. I'm like, it's so short. I cut like 6 inches off, and I should put a picture in because no one ever believes me when I say like, oh yeah, I just cut 6 inches off my hair, because it's still really long, but it was insane. It was too long. Sorry for my little. So yeah, and then when I ran out of yarn, well, I didn't like finish it, but I was like, there's no way, where's the end of this? There's no way that this is going to finish this. And I knew that when I was watching TV last night. I figured that out. And so I started looking at it, and I did notice that my gauge was bigger on this half. And I was like, oh yeah, I got distracted. So I was talking about that technique, the technique to make a, okay, let me get my head straight. So the 1 by 1 ribbing, I was using a technique where to make neater ribbing. And once you discover this technique, you're going to love it, because it really does make, let me see if I can, yeah, give you a really good example here. It really does make a difference on the ribbing. Like, it looks really neat, versus for some reason, when I got to the second half, I stopped doing it. And I think that's because I realized I only had a few days to finish it until I left, and I was trying to give it to my mom before I left so she could have it for Mother's Day. So I started knitting it, and I don't know, I guess I just forgot to do that, because it does take a little bit more extra brain power. I haven't said what the technique is. So the technique for the 1x1 ribbing, and I'll include a video of me doing it because I have a video of me doing it. You knit one, you purl one, and then you yank on that yarn. Please don't yank on it too hard. Just a little tug on that yarn while the stitch is still on your needle, and then you knit the next one. Then you purl, then you yank, then you knit, you purl, then you yank, then you knit, you purl, then you yank, then you knit. And that it does require a little bit extra brain work for that, and it does require more time. It makes it a little bit more time consuming, but the end product to me is just so worth it. I mean, look at how open this gauge is for the 1x1. I wouldn't say it's sloppy, but it's definitely bigger. And so that was the first factor of why I think that this is so much, I don't know if you could tell, it's longer. You really have to fold it in half to see. And honestly, if I had enough yarn, I don't know if I would rip back. I think I would have just seen if you can tell, and probably just gifted it to her like that, because I mean, they make asymmetrical shawls, so I figured that would be fine. But I ran out of yarn, and it's not cheap yarn, so I'm not about to go buy another $30 skein of yarn to finish the edge of this tortilla chip. So this is kind of the difference. Let's see if you can see. Yeah, you can see there, like where it started to get bigger. And I mean, you can see that I'm, almost at the length. So it's going to be longer too. But I really don't think that you would have been able to tell with a finished product with it wrapped around your thing. But I did notice that my gauge was off, and I didn't rip back because I thought I had enough yarn. So I don't have enough yarn. I don't know how far I'm gonna have to rip back. I think I really need to look at when I stop doing that. And I think there was also a second factor to why the decrease side became so much larger, is because I became aware, and the pattern does mention that this this edging does it can be tight, so you have to make sure to like not make it so tight when you slip the first stitch. And it's not tight, but if you hold it like this, it curls a little bit. And so in my head I was like, oh, okay, I need to not make that so tight. So when I started decreasing instead of the increasing, I think I overcompensated, and now it's way looser, number one, but I think it also may have made for a larger fabric or a larger piece. Also, I'm sorry, I keep pulling this up because this is oh, I didn't even tell you what this is. This is the leaf top by, I have no idea. It is a knit lace tank top. I knit it last year, and it is knit out of like a cane sugar yarn. I want to say by Circular. I don't know. I'll link everything. Sorry, and I definitely have talked about it in a different video. But the yarn is so silky, which is really nice. But I'm like terrified that it's gonna fall. I'm not gonna notice. That's also the way I'm looking down there. So I'm really sorry for how fidgety it might be. I don't know if I have anything else to say about this except for that so that's why this is why I decided to film this video, because I really wanted to show this before I ripped it out. And so I'll probably rip it out tonight and then cry a little bit and then get back to knitting it. It's a fun project, so it's fine. And so yeah, I need to finish both of these things because that is all I have on the needles. And I don't feel like a very accomplished knitter, which is stupid, but I don't know. I do have some acquisitions. So yeah, I just got back from Italy for 2 months. So your girl is broke. I am broke. I cannot be spending any money on yarn, but I did. I bought one thing, but I'm so serious that I cannot buy any more yarn until a while. So I'm really going to be forced to knit for my stash, and I have a very, very small stash. Like, I feel like when I say that, you're gonna be like, oh yeah, whatever, she's got a small stash. But no, I don't have a lot, because I have had issues with moths before, which I feel like nobody on YouTube talks about. I don't know why, because I feel like everyone's afraid if they talk about it that they're gonna like jinx themselves into getting moths. And or maybe because like people think it's gross, I don't know, but I've had moths before, and I have a lot to say about it. I should probably make a video talking all about how to prevent moths, how to get rid of them, because it's extremely hard, and how to prevent, I already said prevent, but like real quick, just anytime you bring home yarn from anywhere that, not necessarily questionable, but like another country, or a like outside festival or anything festival, you should freeze it. Put it in your freezer. Don't freeze like silk yarn though. I don't know. Only if it's wool. Yeah, freeze that. Put it in the freezer for a couple of days. Just be careful. Like if you buy any yarn from like a D-stash or anything like that, always freeze your yarn for a couple of days. And what was I getting at? Why was I talking about moths? Oh, that's why I don't have a huge stash, because I just have had issues with that in the past, and I don't. If you, the things that moths go after are stuff that has been sitting. So like if you have items in your closet that you never wear, never get washed, never come out, that's what they end up eating. So you can't have yarn that's just going to sit there for years or half a year. It's got to be kind of in and out. Not to say that the yarn that I have is, sorry, I'm real fidgety. Not to say that the yarn that I have is super new or anything, but I just try not to collect a lot of yarn. But I do have some things, and it does require me to be a little bit more creative about what I can knit and what I can knit next. So that being said, I have one sweater's quantity of yarn, which I've already talked about on the channel. It's for the sweater 18 that I bought last winter, thinking I was going to knit that, and I didn't because it got hot. But I definitely still will knit that, especially because I don't have any money to buy any more yarn. So yeah, that's just it. It makes it difficult because I want to knit sweaters. But so I have that one, and then I have my Straya sweater cardigan that's in hibernation that I could always bust out and knit that again if I ran out of smaller things to knit, or if I want a big project as well. But I did buy, when I got home, which I had no business doing because I just got home from Italy. I have no money. I wasn't making a lot of money because I was on vacation, and I don't get paid vacation because I work for myself. And I get home, and then I see that there's a couple ladies on Instagram holding the book club cowl, and I so want to knit that, and I feel like I really wanted an excuse to knit that in a cowl or with a group, because I don't know, it just feels like I've never done that really, and I think it would be a great way to make friends and just connections and communicate with other knitters, and just really cool to knit something that is, I think I could definitely do it. I've done all the techniques, but it is a little bit of a daunting thing for me to knit. So to have like a group of people that I can ask questions about, it just seems like a really cool experience. So I use that as an excuse to bust out my credit card and order a little bit of yarn. And so I was on a budget, and I actually keep like a note app in my phone of all the yarns that I want to try, all the yarn brands that I want to try, and then I'll put like specific yarns if I see something. And when I had seen this cowl, that notes app actually came really in handy, because I was like, I don't even know where to start. Like, where do I find a somewhat affordable yarn? Like, I don't want to knit it out of, I don't even know an example, but like out of yarn that I'm not going to like. I still want to knit it out of yarn that I like, but I want it to be like less than $100. So, which is a hard thing to do when you're knitting a sweater. I ended up ordering, it's called, let me double check. It's called Lark by Quince & Co. I wish I had it so that I could show it to you, but you're going to see it and you're going to be like, oh, we get what color she likes, because it looks just like my weekend hat. Do 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 do. What do you guys think about AI? It's kind of freaking me out. I don't know. I just feel like the people who keep coming out with it, I was like, has nobody seen, what's that movie? Terminator? Has nobody seen Terminator? Anyways. Okay, so the yarn is from Quince & Co. It is called Lark. It is a worsted weight yarn, and I bought it in the color gingerbread. Apparently I bought all of it because it's sold out. Sorry. Gingerbread, and I will insert a picture because this is dumb of me to show you on my iPad, but I'm gonna do it anyways. The pattern calls for a sport weight and a lace weight mohair held together, so that equals a worsted weight. I ended up just getting a worsted weight yarn because I have never knit with mohair or holding something with mohair, and I've only ever knit a project with 2 strands of yarn once, and that was for the weekend hat. Well, I knit 2 of them, but I knit 2 strands of fingering weight. I didn't think that this project, being how big it will be, was a good one to start my first ever mohair project. And I don't know if I like mohair. Like, I don't know, everyone says it's scratchy, and when I go to the yarn store, I'm always like touching it. I'm like, do I like it? I don't know. Do I like it? I don't know. So I don't know. I just feel like if I'm going to try that, it should be for a smaller project. I also live in Southern California where it doesn't get that cold. It gets cold in the mountains, where I live pretty close to the mountains, and I'm in the mountains all the time. But I don't think that I would get a lot of wear out of a mohair project. So, and I also don't know. I don't know how I feel about the scratchiness. I don't know how I feel about the fuzz. I don't know how I feel about it. I have plenty of fuzz here with my 2 cats and my dog. So not to knock on mohair. It's also expensive. And I just went on telling you how I can't afford it. So yeah, so I ended up buying, I was looking on my notes app to see like what yarn I had bookmarked, and I didn't bookmark this specific one, but I was going through like yarn brands that I want to try, yarn brands that I like, and in my brain I kind of remember the ones that are a little bit less expensive, like Quince & Co. and, am I pronouncing it right? Yeah. And Quince & Co. and Pearl Soho, Knitting for Olive. Like, I wouldn't say they're necessarily cheap yarns, but they're like cheaper than if I went down to my local yarn store, or if I bought some hand-dyed yarn, or like some other Instagram yarn. I don't know. I feel like everything that's, done by small businesses, it's more obviously for a reason, but I just don't have the budget for that right now. So I was looking for a budget in my budget yarn. So this yarn, it was $11 a skein, and that was for 134 yards. It's a 50-gram ball. So it's really not even that cheap, actually, because that's like still $22 for 100 grams of yarn. I don't think I did that math in my head when I did it, but I calculated how many yards or how many skeins I would need, and I needed 8. I bought 1 extra, and that got me for less than $100. And so I was happy that, that's all I'm adding to my credit card is $100 for this sweater. So yeah, I'm really, really excited to knit that and to get that yarn. And that is my biggest acquisition. I'm really excited. Did I already tell you how excited I am? So other acquisitions, I pulled this out of my drawer, and this is Inside Out. This is, I don't know the name of this, I'm gonna have to look it up. But this is a tank top that I finished last summer, and by the time that I was done, it was cold, so I threw it in the drawer, and I never weaved in the ends. It's blocked, it's ready to go. I want to wear it, so maybe one of these nights while watching House of the Dragon, I will weave in those ends. So I'm just pulling this out as a acquisition where it's actually really done. Let me tell you the name of that. I haven't even posted a finished picture of it on my project page because I don't know. I just immediately forgot about it. This is the Tip Top tank in the Fine edition, and that's a weird thing about this pattern is there was 2 editions, one fine and one DK. I think it was either DK or worse. And I believe this yarn claims to be a DK. And when I knit the gauge for the other tank top, the bigger one, the bigger gauge, the DK one, my gauge was too small. And so like I was about to knit another gauge swatch, and then I saw that they had the fine one. And I looked at my gauge and matched that. So I just knit the tip top tank fine edition. So and it turned out perfect. Yeah, so that's an acquisition. That I feel like I had another acquisition. No, I don't think so. Well, not ones that I haven't already talked about, I guess. But so my goal is to, from here on out, I need to cast on more things because I have the opposite of everybody else on YouTube. I don't have crazy cast on energy. I have nervous dog anxiety energy about casting on. I make a really big deal about casting on. I'm scared to cast on. I avoid it. I don't know. I'd rather knit something I already have started. But I want to finish both these things, but I need something. I need something new. I need something shiny. I need some dopamine. So I really need to sit down and pick something, and I'm going to challenge myself to stash dive and become creative and knit things out of my stash. I feel like a lot of people have that goal, but it's always because they're like, my stash is so big, I need to knit it down. And I'm just like, my stash is not big, but I'm out of money because I went to Italy for 2 months, so I need to knit for my stash. So that being said, I said I would talk about Italy a little bit, and I will a little bit. Oh, the UPS driver's here. Okay, I film like right in front of my front door, and my window is right there. And I'm always afraid that people are going to see that what I'm doing. They're going to be like, what is she doing? Oh, he's coming. Thank you. Yeah, so I bought a tote from Portland Leather Goods. It just came in the mail from their Almost Perfect sale, which is their Almost Perfect sales. Portland Leather Goods has leather goods, and then they have Almost Perfect sales, meaning there's something askew, but most of the time it's no big deal, you know. It's just like a couple of marks here and there. And I got a tote from them from their mystery sale. My aunt had bought me a mystery box, and I used the tote so much that I was like, I could get another tote. And this tote was, I think I ended up, because you can also get Portland Leather Goods does like points when you buy things, and I had points from when I had money. And so discounted, I think I walked out the door for this with $50. As I'm telling you how broke I am, there's obviously the financial irresponsibility is, I don't even know what to say. You caught me. Italy. That's what I was going to talk about. So I went to Italy for 2 months. And I talk about this in a previous video about like how I was able to do this financially, how I was able to do this with work, and how I was able to do this. So I'm not going to go into that. But I had this idea last year, in the beginning of last year, and had planned to go in fall with my friend because we wanted to learn how to make olive oil. And we both had left our jobs that we hated, and we're like, let's go. Or we were leaving our job. We last year in the beginning of the year, we came up with the idea. We both quit our jobs in the summer, and then we were going to go in the fall. And then guess what happened? We didn't go in the fall because Mr. Cheek and I were really trying to finish a project that would hopefully bring in more income. So we put it off into the spring. We didn't finish the project around as more income. We're still trying to finish it, but that's how construction goes. That's how the real estate game is. So we ended up going this spring, which olive oil season is not in the spring, but we didn't want to wait till the fall because she's trying to get into school, and I have too many things planned in the fall already, and I'm rambling. Yeah, so we went in the spring. It was me, my friend, and Mr. Cheek came. So we went for 2 months. We flew into Florence, Frenzia, and we rented a car and we drove all the way from Florence, Rome, Naples, Amalfi Coast, Tropea, Sicily. We went around the coast of Sicily, so the northern coast. We did skip the eastern coast, no, the western coast, and then we went straight down to the southern coast and then came back up the eastern coast. And then from there, we drove to Matera and then Ostina, and then drove back up the calf of Italy, if you will, and then drove back to Florence, returned the car, flew home. That's a rough summary. There were definitely a lot of small places. Because I didn't even mention, actually the first farm was north of Florence, which was in, it was a little bit outside of Reggio Emilia. And from there we drove up to Lake Como and Lake Grata and Milan. But yeah, we saw, I saw a lot of Italy in 2 months. And we originally meant to do 3 farms. The first farm, we were there for 2 weeks, and that was the one that was a little bit outside of Reggio Emilia. And then the second farm was Castel di Sangro, in that, I was saying it weird because I'm not 100% that's how you say it, but that was in the mountain range, like in the center of Italy, and that was a really, really cool farm that we did for 2 weeks. But we got the stomach flu, and the Italian stomach flu was real serious, and so we were out for like a good week and a half of just being sick, throwing up. I didn't eat for an entire week. And so when we left that farm, it kind of came on sporadically for us. So Joey, Mr. Cheek, and I were sick at the second farm, and then when we got to the third farm, my friend got really sick, and we were just like, dude, we can't stay. I don't want to stay at another farm while one of us can't work and are sick. So we left, and it was for the better, because I don't think we would have been able to see as much Sicily as we did. And Sicily was probably my favorite part, definitely Mr. Cheek's favorite part of the trip. He has always wanted to go there because his family actually immigrated from Lipari, which is a small island outside of Sicilia, and not outside, but like off of the northern coast there. And that is where his family immigrated over 100 years ago. So we went to the town, we visited the graveyard. It was a really cool experience to like see where his family came from. And what else was I talking about? The farm. So yeah, I saw a lot of Italy. It was amazing. I would not recommend driving in Italy, not even because of how, like, what you're thinking. I am really nervous about the day that we get the speeding tickets from Italy, because we at least have 3, but it's really hard to drive in Italy. Their speed limits are insanely slow, and even if you drive them, it's really easy to get a speeding ticket, because, well, I've heard from Italians that they'll ticket you if you're going 5 kilometers over the speed limit. So it's not like, I don't know, I feel like in America, if the speed limit's 65 and you're going 70, no one's going to ticket you. But if it's a machine that sees you, it's different. So that's what I've heard of. And there's something called a ZTL, which is a zone of limited traffico. And that is in every town in Italy, which we knew about, but I didn't realize how extensive it was. Like, basically, you cannot drive in any city center, any historical areas without a permit, and you can't get a permit if you're doing what we're doing. So it makes it, that's not a reason I wouldn't drive in Italy, because I do feel like we saw so much more of it because we had a car. I think we would have seen significantly less if we had to rely on public transportation, which I don't know because we didn't take it there, but I'm assuming it's better than here. When we were in France 10 years ago, we relied on public transportation. It was great. But we were able to see so much of Italy because we had the car. But I guess what I'm saying is I wouldn't recommend it unless you're real confident and then really understand the laws. And the speed limits not only are difficult because they're so slow, but nobody drives the speed limits because they all live there and they all know where the speed cameras are. So if you try to drive the speed limit, everyone's going to be passing you left and right, being like, what is wrong with you? Why are you driving so slow? And it's because we don't know where the speed cameras are. So you really can't even drive the speed limit safely. So you have to drive the speed limit of the other cars, and then you end up getting speeding tickets. So where's I going with that? Yeah, because I know people are probably curious about driving and renting a car. I would definitely do this again, though. I told Mr. Cheek, once we get our projects in line and we start having enough income that I can save, I want to start saving for another trip like this. I would love to do Spain, and I would love to go back to France and do the same thing, rent a car and road trip. We were really big on road tripping around the United States. We've driven to New York. We've driven to, not Florida, but close. We drove to Canada, drove all through Canada. So we like road tripping, and I really liked road tripping in another country. So I'd definitely do it again in another country like France or Spain, or definitely. Let me know. I don't know if you got any other places that you think would be really cool to road trip. Maybe Japan. But yeah, I need to save like $10,000 because that's no joke how much you need to do that. I mean, I think that's about right for this trip. And this trip was like not half the time, but for at least 4 weeks we were staying on farms where we didn't actually have to pay for food or stay. And it still was incredibly, just costs a lot of money to travel. Plane tickets, renting cars, speeding tickets. That being said, Italy is like incredibly inexpensive when it comes to eating food. And I think their just cost of living is lower. Obviously not if you're in a super touristy area, but even in some of the touristy areas, it's significantly cheaper than it is in the US. So much so that when I got home, I had a lot of culture shock coming back and be like, oh my God, I forgot that a sandwich with a tip can be $18. Or I forgot that I can leave 3 bags of groceries from Sprouts and it ends up being $118, you know? So that's a little bit of a culture shock coming back. And their cost of living is just, I don't want to say that actually, the gas out there is much more expensive, but the cost of food, like to eat out and to buy groceries, was way less. It was really nice. I'm at the point where I don't even want to eat out here anymore because, I did get tired of Italian food in Italy because they lack a little bit of diversity that we have here in the States, where like every town has different foods, and they didn't have that as much. Like, yeah, some of the bigger cities you could definitely find some other culture food, but for the most part, especially in small towns, it was like they only have Italian food. So your choice is pasta or pizza, or Mr. Chic and my friend are vegetarians. I'm not, but so we also had to like only eat at places that had vegetarian options, which wasn't as easy as I thought it would be if you're tired of margarita pizza and caprese salads and caprese sandwiches. So I did get a little tired of Italian food while we were out there, but that being said, I had some of the best food I've ever had in my life. Really not out to eat. Actually, at the first farm that I stayed at, the lady was such a good cook, and she taught me how to make a lot of things. So that was a really special experience for me. I did get a little bit homesick. 2 months is a long time. I think that if we were to do this again, I'd probably do 5 weeks a month. Not to say that I didn't love the end of the trip, but I think there was a factor of us being so sick, and I was like, it's really not fun to be coming at both ends at someone else's house. It's really not fun. And for that long, it's like one thing if it's like a day or two, walk it off. But this was like, the flu, we were out in like, I think 5 days of no eating, just sleeping all day and just feeling horrible because you're supposed to be working for exchange of room and board, which we weren't eating, but still it just didn't feel good. And my one friend's out there pulling weeds and me working. I did work actually a little bit through being sick, but Mr. Cheek was not able to. He got it the worst. So I did get homesick after that a little bit. I was ready to come home. I wanted to poop in my own toilet and sleep in my own bed. And But and then we went to the Amalfi Coast, which was probably my least favorite part of the whole trip. I will say that Italy is very crowded. It's very crowded when it comes to anything that you can recognize the name of. Like you're like, oh, I've heard of Venice, I've heard of Rome, I've heard of the Amalfi Coast. Anything that you in the U.S. know the name of is crowded, and it's not unenjoyable, but the Amalfi Coast for me was a little bit too crowded and too condensed just because of the nature of the landscape. It was not fun to do in a car, but I can't imagine any other. It's like if you're there, you can either take a bus or you drive, and both things are just not ideal. I would suggest if you are going to go to the Amalfi Coast, stay in Sorrento and then take ferries. Ferries is the best because then you don't have to worry about cars. You don't have to worry about being in a hugely packed bus driving on really windy, scary roads. So, but we had a car, and parking the car and doing things like that was really difficult there and very expensive. But it was fun. I don't think I would go back to the Amalfi Coast. I think it's kind of overrated. Sorrento was my favorite part of the Amalfi Coast, and that's probably the least, like, I don't know, thing that you see on Instagram. We didn't go to Capri, but we didn't go to Cinque Terre, and I've heard Cinque Terre is very similar because the landscape is so narrow and there's just not a lot of space there to be, so it's just so crowded. But that being said, Lake Como was crazy crowded, and Lake Como is one of the most gorgeous places I've ever been, and I would go back. I don't care how crowded and touristy it is. I think one of the things that was different about Lake Como was that they have ferries that go to all the places that you want to go. I believe Amalfi Coast does too, but we just weren't able to get on them because we weren't staying near a ferry port, and we had a car and we just didn't know what to do with the car, and then to take the bus down to the ferry port, I don't know. But yeah, don't drive there. Just take the ferries if you can. I don't know how easy it would be, but I think it would be easier, 100% easier than driving or taking a bus. So, and that's why I enjoyed Lake Como so much, because you just get on a ferry. You go to Bellagio to, I forget the name of the other town, but it's really famous. But yeah, it was just as crowded, but I feel like it was so beautiful and just took my breath away. How pretty Lake Como was. Lake Grata was not as pretty as Lake Como in my opinion, but we didn't drive very north. We were just at the very southern tip of like the crotch, and that was a little bit too crowded, and there wasn't like an escape of take a ferry to a different place or whatever. That being said too, if you're in Italy and you're trying to avoid the crowds, you'll see it online where people are like, get up early. You don't necessarily have to get up early, but it's what I call the middle of the day. I call it idiot o'clock, which is really offensive, but it's because my grandpa used to say something about like, I got to get this done before the idiots are up. And so like in my brain, I call it idiot o'clock, but not to say that if you sleep in that you're an idiot, but like if you're out between like noon and 3, it's you know, you got to do things earlier, you got to think, or do things later. Actually, Lake Como it's not a busy night area, so actually later at night it was really not crowded at all, but middle of the day it was very crowded. Rome was very crowded, but Rome was really fun, really enjoyed it. And so I was talking about crowds. Yeah, I'm not a huge crowd person, but I actually didn't even want to go to Rome because I'd heard how crowded it was, and I was like, I don't even want to go. But my friend had never been, so we went, and Rome was one of the funnest places that we went, so definitely go there. I wouldn't go to Naples again. Naples was scary. I'm sorry. That being said, my favorite places had to be places that I'd never heard of, which is Cefalù, which I think is pretty well known now because of White Lotus. Cefalù, Tropea, and Matera were just so cool. Matera is so cool. Matera is a very southern point of Italy. Like, I guess you could say the heel. No, not the heel. The arch of the boot. It's right outside of Puglia, where we cross into to stay in Ostuni. Yeah, Ostuni. And we stayed in Matera for 2 nights. Matera is so cool. You don't need a lot of time there, but it's really cool. And then Modica was really cool. It's a place that have chocolate in Sicily. And we did go to Taormina, where White Lotus is filmed. That was very crowded. It was very like, I want to say it's like the Beverly Hills of Sicily, like rich people, rich people stores, rich people things. Yes, the food is more expensive there, not crazy expensive. You can go. It was when we decided not to do the third farm. I looked at my budget, which was not like an official budget or anything. I'm like just like kind of figuring out numbers in my head, and I looked at Airbnbs and hotels, and I was like, we can do this. We can do Sicily. We could stay on the beach, close to the beach, and it was roughly 100 euros a night. And I was like, this is really affordable. We can do this. So we did it. Taormina was the only exception. Taormina was expensive. I think we ended up spending $500 on 2 nights in Taormina, but I think Taormina is worth it. I wasn't super into the beach in Taormina, but the town is really fun, and I wish I would have stayed one more day. We were there for 2 days. And then Cantina, I don't know if I'm saying that right, but that's the second biggest town besides Palermo. We did go to Palermo, not for very long. It was all right, but Cantina, I would really want to spend more time there too, because that part of Sicily, that's like the eastern, not southern, just the eastern part of Sicily. Sorry, they call it Sicilia, and it's like really hard to get that out of my head now because it's embarrassing when you call things American names, towns American names or countries. I don't know, like Italia. But where was I getting? Oh, Mount Etna is so cool to see a volcano smoking in the distance. So I really liked Cantina and Taormina because you could see Mount Etna from there. And then when we went to Lipari, you also can see the volcano Vulcana, Stromboli, and then also Lipari has a volcano too. But I don't know if I ever figured out where it was on the island. But Stromboli was really cool to like sit on a beach and like watch a volcano smoking in the distance. I think I kind of touched on everywhere that we went. And I said I wouldn't ramble on too long about it because, I mean, I could talk about it for forever, talk to you about the food, the experience. Definitely had the time of my life. I was ready to come home for sure. I missed my pets, and also our dog she's kind of sick. She's 15, and she started to lose the mobility of her back legs while we were gone, and so we really wanted to get home and make sure she was well taken care of and, get her to the vet and figure out what's going on with her. And I just wanted to be home. I just wanted to eat a bean and cheese burrito and go to the gym. So I was ready to come home, but a week or so into it, I definitely miss it. I definitely loved being over there. And yeah, I don't know, 10 out of 10, maybe 9 out of 10 with the flu. Oh, I didn't even tell you that I got stung by a jellyfish, and that was the last week, and it happened at Mare de Astuni, I think is the area that we were in. It was just a beach in Puglia, and yeah, I got stung by a jellyfish. Let me show you. Well, okay, so it's called sea bather's eruption, and that is where the larva of the jellyfish or microscopic jellyfish, I'm not 100% sure, get on your skin, and then when you get out of the ocean, they die and release their toxin. And so yeah, I got this is like 2 weeks old, and that's the markings that I had. I had a really bad reaction to it, and what are you gonna do? I was taking Allegra, I put some steroid cream on it. I had a really terrible 3 days in Astuni. I mean, I made the most out of it. I still really had a good time in Astuni, but I was itchy and it was warm and it was sweaty and it was horrible. And then we drove up to the last place we stayed in before Florence, before we left, is Arezzo, and that was a really itchy day too. But yeah, so Italy beat the crap out of us with the flu and the jellyfish, and then we also got really motion sickness in Taormina. We went snorkeling and just threw up and fed all the fish. So yeah, maybe not 10 out of 10, but I still had a really good time. I'm really happy to be back. I'm really happy to focus on knitting and get a video up every other week. We'll see. Every other week is good. Every week I just don't knit that much, guys. I don't have that much time to come up with things to talk about. But who knows? Maybe I'll completely change personalities and and get really knitty. I don't know. I also have a lot of other hobbies that I love, like the piano and roller skating and cleaning my house obsessively. Yeah, so, and I like to cook, and but I also really like to read, and my reading is the worst that it's been in years. Like my book count is bad. Like my goal is, I just changed my goal from 60 to 50 because I'm still like 8 books behind. I've read 15 books this year, and that is a really low number for me. I listen to a lot of audiobooks. Um, I probably read like 12 physical books a year, but I I have gotten close to 100 audiobooks. I don't watch a lot of TV. I read a lot of audiobooks, listen to a lot of audiobooks. And I don't know, I just haven't really been into reading. It's been a 3-star year for me. Every book that I read, I'm like 3 stars. 3 stars. This one's also 3 stars. So if you have any book recommendations, if you want to add me on Book Talk, no, on Goodreads, I'm KnitCheek. And please recommend some books for me. I desperately need some good books. I should end it. I should wrap it up. My dog just woke up and she's so cute. She's looking at me like, wrap it up. I'm tired of listening to her voice. I know. I'm so sorry. Well, thank you so much for watching the longest video that I've ever filmed, and that's because I was chatting about Italy for who knows how long. If you've made it this far, thank you for watching. I promise I will have more knitting for you next time. And here, I'm going to go frog some stuff. Maybe cast something on. Who knows? Pray for my cast on energy. I don't know. Don't do that. I don't even know what episode this is. I don't know. Please subscribe. I come out with new videos every other week, and you want to know about it, so you're going to have to subscribe to be alerted. I don't actually know if that's how it works, but if you want to subscribe, that'd be cool. If you want to add me on Instagram, my handle is KnitCheek. Ew. Okay, Mr. Cheek's home, so I gotta go. Bye.